cities in the world.
Well, Nick, Perth is in all its glory today. The weather couldn't be better. The people are out in their tens of perhaps even hundreds of thousands. And you have to say that watching that history with the Queen's visits here to Perth, something the royal family of the UK do better than anyone else's pomp and ceremony.
Well, they do. They've had a lot of practice. We saw a lot of that earlier this year. And, you know, watching the footage there from 1954 and those subsequent years, I was struck partly by the way that the commentator did it. Maybe we should do it like that these days, you know. That's really evocative, isn't it? And kind of a sentiment taking us back to the 50s. But it reminds us, for those of us of generations who were not there when she was coming to the throne in the 50s, it reminds us what a glamorous young figure she was. It's easy to think perhaps that Catherine Middleton is, you know, almost the first glamorous figure within the royal family.
She's
not. There was
class.
Diana, there was the Queen's younger sister Margaret, there was the Queen herself. How young she was then. The frocks are different, but the wave and the person, and most importantly, the commitment to do this job of monarch remains the same and as strong as ever.
Indeed, and obviously it was something she was born to do, but she does it spectacularly well and has really tried to move with the times, Nick. In 1954, of course, they were on board their yacht for most of it due to a polio epidemic here in Perth. 1963 was much more relaxed, but then in 1977, she even lauded the freedom of speech when there was the talk of movement for a republic here, and she said that there was an air of self-confidence about Australia, which is quite generous in the circumstances of her.
Yeah, she has played the part of constitutional monarch impeccably. She has remained attuned to the changing tides within this country. Now, look, we know that not everybody is signed up to the idea of Australia being a monarchy. She knows that, and she accepts that. She is a constitutional monarch. She is obliged to accept the democratic choice of people here. But what's interesting as an outsider coming in here is this feeling, and people of Republican views, I think, have confirmed it, that at the moment the tide seems to be rather swinging the other way, that the feeling, the sentimental and real analytical feeling in support of the idea of the monarchy remaining here seems to be gaining strength. You know, I'm an outsider, so I'm hesitating to express a view, but certainly she has remained in touch with that through her Governor-Generals, obviously, but it's terribly important to her that she is in tune with her people in the UK, in Australia, and in all the different countries of which she's monarch.
And in fact, if national polling is anything to go by, her popularity is up 17% from 1999.
Well, absolutely. That clearly was a moment when the Republican sentiment was at its height. And there will be a number of reasons, perhaps, why there has been an upsurge in popularity for the monarchy, not least, of course, the attention of the royal wedding earlier this year. But I think also it comes back to that feeling that here is a woman who has not really ever put a foot wrong, that she has done this job of constitutional monarch so well. It takes the role of head of state away from politics, and it gives you that canopy above the sort of squabbling politicians. It gives you that security and stability and continuity. And again, she has done all of those things so remarkably well, and it's also the qualities, I think, that she embodies as a person, which people respond to, the kind of sense of loyalty and of duty, all those qualities that we all aspire to, but which she has actually translated into reality, not just for a couple of years, but across 60 years. And again, you know, we have to keep reminding ourselves that she's been there for all these decades.
Indeed, and look at all those people. They're so wonderfully, wonderfully excited. And I think perhaps also in these uncertain times, people like to feel that tie. And Nick, can I raise at this point, there are a number of ties between Australia and the UK, not least of all the swan bells that we're hearing ring out. A gift from St Martin's in the Field. Yeah,
that famous church in the centre of London, a gift from the St Martin's in the Fields to the people of Western Australia for the bicentennial in 1988. And 12 bells, I think, were gifted, and they were from the very famous, certainly in the UK, the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, and I believe their origins date right back to the reign of Elizabeth I in the, what's that, the 16th century, the 1500s.
So in fact, I believe they were originally cast in the 14th century, and then the 16th century it was Queen Elizabeth I that had them recast, and the bell tower is it was a bone of contention around the Millennium celebrations, but it was the one project that remains a legacy of those celebrations that came in on time and on budget, and it makes a spectacular backdrop today.
It's very impressive, it is too, and we can see a lot of people taking advantage of that platform on this tower, waiting for the arrival of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. So yes, and rather a nice symbolism. Bells from the reign of Elizabeth I ringing out in welcome for Elizabeth II. So that's a neat symbolism.
And indeed, and if you want one final tie there, apparently these bells have rung for every coronation since King George II. That was back in 1727. Of course, they haven't had the chance to ring here for a coronation, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But they also rang for the homecoming of Captain James Cook on his return to England in 1771. So that's they've done some hard work.
They ring out on all the most auspicious moments, and they are ringing right now, because this clearly is an auspicious moment for Perth. And there again we see the many citizens of this city who have come out here and along the route along which the Queen and the Duke are now travelling.
Lovely. And St Martin's in the Field is in fact the Queen's parish church, so one
She's got so many
time.
parish churches, really. I suppose Westminster Abbey in a sense is her parish church. The Westminster Abbey and St Paul's Cathedral, you know, she has her pick of all of them. Westminster Abbey is what's known as a royal peculiar, so she kind of controls Westminster Abbey, but yeah, all of them. And what a wonderful shot that was of the tower there, yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And we did touch there on a coronation. What's the firmly held belief at the moment in the UK about who will succeed the Queen on the throne?
Well, we're treading into serious waters here, but no, I mean, there is a very
hoping
simple
you can give us the inside track.
Well, Steph, there is a very straightforward answer. The next monarch will be the Prince of Wales. You know, as let's take a step back. The Queen will never abdicate. She will not abdicate, because that is upsetting the whole ethos of a hereditary monarchy. She took a vow at her coronation, and she takes that vow very seriously, and she will discharge that commitment, which was, in her view, with God, to continue in her role until the moment of her death, when then the throne will pass to her son and heir, Prince Charles. And you know, there are many people expressing views about this, perhaps, but I think the prevailing view is that the monarchy, a hereditary monarchy such as this, cannot be a beauty contest. You can't start chopping and changing and thinking, well, Prince William is more attractive and he's got a lovely wife, so we'll have them. It will pass. The crown will pass.